Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. My name is DB333, and welcome back to Hearts 4, the New Order, Last Days of Europe, as the Greater German Reich, which is actually starting to live up back to its name, if you can believe it. In last video, well, we're working on entrenching our position a bit more. It might end up being a 5-4 distribution of the nukes, maybe 6-3 if we're lucky. I'm not so certain, but yeah, we're working on that. We're talking to the Poles right now, and hopefully that'll help us out. And for now, the market's open. Perhaps for the best of the Bretons had not seized the apparatus of the state. To lose access to the black market would be highly detrimental to our cause. The flow of arms will continue for the time being, so long as Himmler does not bring his forces to bear on the state. In fact, the threat of such might be exactly what we need to work the Bretons to pick aside. Neutrality only works so long as it's respected by everyone else, and neither Führer nor Himmler does so. It was cold, wet, and gray when Heydrich's helicopter landed in a desolate field several kilometers from Königsberg. The only feature besides a forest and distinct city was a recently built church in a Russian Orthodox style. Heydrich sneered at the sight of it as a Fallschirmjäger piled out of a helicopter and fanned out in patrol formation around him. No doubt it was some Russian Slavs who'd put it up, worse than the Poles in his estimation, especially now they clung to their overbearing, backwards form of religion. As the group strode across the muddy field towards the church, something glinted in the bell tower, and two of the paratroopers themselves threw themselves in front of Heydrich, rifles up. "Out of the way," Heydrich growled, pushing in between them. In part, he simply refused to show fear, but that it might not be entirely objectionable to be shot rather than go through this insult to Hitler's memory. His escort hurried to catch up, and he continued working towards the church-churned mud and grass squelching beneath his jackboots. Fitting, he thought, that he should disgrace himself in such a squalid environment rather than the sunny fields of fair climes. Upon reaching the church steps, he paused, still not seeing any other sign of his slaves. Not bothering to wipe his boots, he turned to the Fallschirmjäger unit and tossed him his Luger. "Wait here. If anything happens, burn the shit heap down." Throwing the doors open before him, the Führer stalked into the room. "Face me, degenerate." The floorboards ahead of him in the dark, creaked ahead of him in the dark. From behind the crude pulpit emerged the man who could only be Kazimierz Piechowski. Piercing blue eyes, blue as Heydrich's own, peered out at him from a weathered face framed by mouse-brown beard. His musculature was lean but prominent, tempered by both a hard slave's diet and years of manual labor. "Reinhard Heydrich, you are unarmed." He spoke in heavily accented, but clearly fluent German. Heydrich remained impassive. "I don't fear slaves or subhumans. That aside, you aren't either. You wouldn't risk it if your proposal was serious." Piechowski turned and walked around to behind the altar, motioning for Heydrich to join him. The Führer did so, staring down his supposed inferior down a smooth oak surface with its hand-carved decorations. "Neither of us wants this Nazi. Your General Speidel is reasonable, but we cannot accept his word alone. Though he did say you might be willing to accept our terms. I must promise no such thing to Speidel, but I'll heal you regardless. Spare me any appeal, Slav. Just present your terms." Piechowski glared for a moment before setting out to restrain himself. "First, guarantee our survival. Their SS are south planning to invade, and we can't stop them without assistance. Second, let us go. We aren't stupid. I know you won't do what we both know you should. But let my people go, at least. Back to Poland, or wherever we choose if it's outside Germany once this is over." "That's it." There was a silence between the pair. It didn't seem unreasonable to Heydrich, but could he really just let it happen? Let the Slav hold the whip over the German even for the briefest moments? I accept. Piachovsky didn't betray any hint of emotion, but Heydrich knew that a sudden turmoil had erupted behind the man's eyes. He felt it too, the metal-on-metal screeching of his ideals clashing with his common sense. I accept. My forces will ensure that you are not troubled. Furthermore, you have my word as Führer of the great German Reich that... God, what was he doing? That your people will be permitted safe passage upon the defeat of Burgundy. Is that so? Piachovsky scratched the stubble on his cheek, glancing sideways at Heydrich as he mulled it over in his head. Good. Good, but what? Heydrich snapped. Was the subhuman playing games with him now? The Pole crossed his arms. I'm thinking your offer is genuine, Heydrich, but there's more, isn't it? This isn't just a clash of armies. You don't need us for that. This is something bigger. Bigger than you. What's happening out west? Heydrich's gut clenched into a knot. Who was this man? He'd found nothing in the archives. Was this a pre-war intelligence officer? Had Spidell let him in on what was happening? Regardless, he sensed there was only one thing for it. Heydrich reached into his pocket, drawing forth Himmler's briefings, and slapped it down the altar. Hope he can read German, too. We'll keep negotiating with his forces. Oh god, we are out of PP. Piachovsky read through the briefing in silence, not once glaring up at Heydrich. His face remained stony the whole way through, unreadable as Heydrich at his best. If he believed what he was reading, there was no indication of it. After 10 long minutes, during which Apollo scrutinized every page, like a hawk, the briefing was finally set down, and Piachovsky delivered his answer. No. Elaborate. What do you mean? I mean no, Herr Heydrich. I see the facts, but they will not suffice for this. Now go. We will not oppose you if you leave us be, but we'll fight you if we must. There's nothing more to say. Then he was gone, vanished out a side door into the rain and fog of that cold Prussian morning. With him went Heydrich's curses, and curiously, a little bit of his hope. Perhaps even they possess principles. Man. Okay. Okay, they went with Lorliston. Shiza. Okay, well... Five to 3 to 1. Since Sudeten, they joined the Loyalisten, I'm guessing. Yeah, there we go. Let's reveal Himmler's treachery. A useful circumstance has arisen as a result of swaying certain Himmlerites to the Führer's side. Burgundian invasion plans are now in our possession, specifically ones pertaining to a certain peninsular state on the western border. Regime in Brittany would be doubtlessly be intrigued by these verifiably genuine documents, not to mention utterly infuriated, considering the Himmlerite leanings of our SS. It would be very unfortunate for Himmler if someone were to pass the invasion plans along and thereby drive the Bretons into the Führer's camp. Quite unfortunate. Indeed. We're getting there. Oh, what is up with this? Oh, they are at war. Okay. Okay. There is no race in Europe so perfidious, barbaric, and belligerent as the Polish. Time and time again, they have risen against the Germanic empires, bringing rack and ruin to rightful German lands. They have been a thorn in the side of every great power to ever rule their benign country, and will never learn their place no matter how many times we bring down the boot on their scrawny necks. Stubborn as mules, cunning as foxes, and brutish as apes. Qualities that might, in some repulsive twist of fate, actually be useful for us. Jan sips his coffee as he watches his counterpart make his way towards his post, his rifle loosely strapped on his back in contrast to the German on the other side of the border. He'd been there early in the morning when Jan was stretching and struggling with his jacket and was there now 2 hours later. Jan wasn't sure of the man and moved in all that time, his eyes silent sentries on a silent road. Wasn't like much of anything cross the border anyway. "Good morning," Andreas said quietly, and Jan turned back to his accomplice. "Anything to report?" "Nothing. I've just been watching the German over there. Don't think he moved a muscle over the last hour," Jan replied, taking a sip of his coffee. Andreas looked over the man, then back. "He's an SS, isn't he? They all are creepy bastards." Andreas replied, a hint of disgust poking at his tone. Jan agreed, as did just about every Pole alive would too. They had very, very, very few good experiences with Germany in general, let alone the SS. "Yeah, well, as long as we stay there, we don't have a problem with them. At least nothing we can do about it," Jan replied. Andreas nodded and marched back across the road. And Jan's eyes turned back to the Germans. For a moment, he could have sworn the man was watching them before his eyes flicked back down the road. A strange place indeed. Well, we have some unfortunate realities we have to deal with. It's wrong, beyond wrong. The Poles represent everything loathsome in the subhuman soul, but so many of our own race have turned worse. The world seems inverted, all deformed and demented. It's General Speidel, the savior of the Reich, now advocates for an alliance of pragmatism, one of our greatest enemies. If this shame will prevent one incalculably greater, then so be it. Just got a lot more evened up. Oh, Shiza. Uh-oh! Double Shiza. How are they controlled by Burgundy? Excuse me? Thus? The bitter nightmare winds were shrieking through the open table. Heydrich cursed, placing the bottle back on the table and rising from his chair. The dimly lit office swirled at him, a collage of amber and blue. Bile rose in his throat. The effect of a toxic liquid or disgust at his own degenerate indulgence. The fear staggered towards the window, slamming it shut with a grunt. Was Speidel also drinking at this late hour? Downing bottles of vodka with his new subhuman friends in Poland? Speidel never pretended to be anything other than a reluctant conservative. He had no excuses to give. What would Heydrich say to his children as he lay on his deathbed? How would he explain negotiations with Slavs, alliances with Poles, forged bonds with lesser beings? The Aryan was standing hand in hand with Slav. To save the Reich would soon be ablaze in nuclear fear if Heydrich were a weaker man. Heydrich's eyes were drawn to the star-studded sky. Some Nazis would rather burn than betray the race. Some Nazis would sooner embrace death with dignity than scurry to safety in the muck. He stared at this reflection in the window. A Mongol stared back, not an Aryan. He stared at his Asiatic eyes, as his disgusting Jewish features, thick lips, outstretched ears, a large nose. He cursed and heard a high-pitched whine, instead of a guttural boom befitting a Fuhrer. Heydrich drew out a pistol and fired it at the window with a cry. It shattered into 100 pieces, and they were all scattered to the wind. To be an Aryan. You have a familiar deal, it seems. A familiar demand. Fuck, what else is there to do? Remember the glory days. Wehrmacht has always been easily led. Mere promises of glory are generally enough to sate your discontent, but those prove insufficient for alternate solutions, usually involving prompt ceremony and mass recruitment drives. Oh, yeah, they're dead. That's not nice. Not at all. Not one bit. No, sir. Heydrich took a long, deep puff of his cigarette as Spidell explained the situation. The officer's defiant stare no longer amused him. When this was all done, he would take great pleasure in handing the smug little man his neck. He silently rubbed his sleepless eyes with his free hand. So is post-ferment also? Want a personal meeting? Heydrich muttered. He took one more puff and ground the cigarette into the ashtray. Smoke streamed from his nostrils. They will only accept negotiations from the Theo himself, Spidell repeated. They don't trust your words emanating from my mouth. It sends a signal of dishonesty, apparently. There was a minute of silence. Do they fear me? Heydrich suddenly asked. What he had intended as a forceful question sounded whiny and pathetic in his head. He dug his nails into his palm. For some reason, he could not bring himself to meet Spidell's gaze. They would be foolish not to, my Führer. An alliance with Untermensch is an alliance nonetheless, I suppose. Well, a deal for devil. As this obscene venture was General Spidell's idea, the hope was that he would act as a middleman between the Führer and the rebellious Poles. No luck there, it seems. The bastards only negotiate directly with Heydrich himself. We should punish such insolence with invasion, but we have few allies enough already. Perhaps this too is a price that must be paid for salvation. One more compromise and one more betrayal of Germany and National Socialism. If Hitler could see us now. Communists of Unified Kazakhstan. Very nice. Ooh, Ireland versus the Irish. So, whoa, what? Oh, okay. Reinhardt stood firm against the wind as it blew his overcoat and rustled his hair. The field seemed to stretch out forever. He cursed himself for a fool. Why did he agree to meet in such an open space? The helicopter was right behind him, ready to ascend at any moment. Fallschirmjäger troops surrounded him, rifles pointed out towards the great skies and long fluttering grass. The subhumans had initially wanted to meet in Warsaw, a proposal Heydrich had swiftly shot down. Even standing in this bleak field was a reminder of a Pole's current autonomy. It made his skin crawl. The Fallschirmjäger commander shouted something. A truck was approaching their location, finally. The Führer had been waiting exactly 17 minutes and 36 seconds. Was it an intentional sign against him? The Fallschirmjäger troops raised their rifles as armed men steamed out of the vehicle. Heydrich ordered his men to lower their weapons and strode forward. A scrawny old Pole by the truck gave a similar order and approached Heydrich by himself. Fieldorf. Heydrich spat. He gave a sharp Hitler salute. Heil Heydrich. The two eyes embedded with that wrinkled face, bloodshot and drifting, burned with fury. If I did not love my people, Herr Heydrich, I would shoot you in your face. The heavily accented German was tinged with sourness. You know my demands. The Polish slaves in Germany will be repatriated to my nation. Poland will be free and left in solidarity. You want me to accept a hive of vermin at my border? Heydrich laughed, though his eyes remained icily cold. Hateful silence arose, growing thicker and thicker with every passing sentence. We accept these demands for the greater good. Damn it all. So I'm wondering. Decision, no checks. We'll do this just to even the field out a little bit. I accept. Something bitter flooded Heydrich's mouth, drenching his tongue. I accept your demands. Self-pragmatist. The Reich has no use of dirty little slaves going around like rats. They will be sent back here to this backwoods hellscape. You can rule this land over your interdimension solidarity. I have little use for this land, but silence returned as hateful as ever. Heydrich counted the seconds as those Slav guys stared back at him. They were weary but bright, uncharacteristically intelligent for his race. At last, the old man spoke. I don't believe you. Fyodor sighed deeply and sadly. The creases etched on his face rumbled together. You are clearly desperate for our help, that is obvious, but we are mere pawns for your game of chess against Himmler. You won't keep your promises. Desperate, Heydrich muttered. He reached into his overcoat. The Polish troops screamed out and raised their weapons. The German troops roared in response. Heydrich froze. Fyodor slowly raised his hand. The Polish lowered their rifles. The Führer gently withdrew a thin document handed over. Feast your withered little eyes on this. Fyodor snatched the document and flicked it open. Heydrich had expected fear to grow on the man's face, or shock, or perhaps even fury. Instead, Fyodor's expression grew sadder and sadder with every passing page. By the time he had finished, the leader of the Polish resistance no longer stood before him, but a tired old man. The truth laid bare. We'll try to bring the garrison home. The Cornish garrison is a rightfully vaunted element for Wehrmacht. They have been watchful eyes and stalwart guardians alike, doing their duty to keep the British Isles secure. Their commander, Franz Halder, is not an SS man, but would certainly trust Heydrich over Himmler any day. Once ascertain the garrison situation and bring them home possible. Their higher standards of training discipline will match even the best of Himmler's minions. It's a reasonable idea. We got Brittany on our side. Caucasia, maybe not. But Caucasia's up. A life of fear and loathing is better than no life at all, Fyodor finally responded. He'd read through the document 3 times. I believe that scum like you will soon be wiped from the face of the earth. But I don't want all life to meet the same fate. If you cannot stop Himmler, there will be no hope. A wise decision. Heydrich grabbed the document and shoved it into his overcoat. You only tell your closest subordinates of the truth. People cannot know. It will only create a mass panic. Fyodor nodded in reluctant agreement. Poland will come to your aid, at least in the struggle. If you betray our demands, there will be hell to pay. You're not rats after all, are you? Heydrich tugged on a pair of black gloves as the wind grew stronger. You cockroaches. Always coming back. Nobody can fucking kill you. He leaned over, staring into the bull's eyes. You had better keep your word, roach. With that, the Führer marched back to the helicopter, leaving the disgusted sight of a dull gray field behind him. Alliance forged in fear. Still an alliance. Still an alliance. Okay, front line. The front versus Samara. It's about even. I give it the front, though. My fear, in spite of General Oberst Halder's best efforts, Cornwall garrison was defeated by English forces. At present, personnel has been in turn pending negotiation between us and the English. While Halder's troops were disarmed, they remained experienced combat veterans, which could be very useful in the upcoming struggle over Germany's future. Therefore, it's recommendable to see whether it's possible to return these men to Germany. Heil Heydrich. Let's pick up the remnants. A disappointing turn of events, Halder and his forces have been overthrown by the English. Not unexpected considered isolation, but a poor showing indeed. Still, soldiers are soldiers, and the situation cannot be blamed solely on Halder's inconsistency. The English are a moralistic people, despite their perfidy. Most of their garrison is likely still alive, confined to POW camps. With England in a precarious state, we will certainly not object to losing a few thousand hungry mouths. We have some unassigned divisions. There we are. To assign, we'll give you Sylvester Stadler. And then... Oh, no. Let's be very careful of what we are doing. Front line, and then offensive line. With trembling hands, Heydrich placed a final pin representing the nuclear arsenals in his marked territory. The reports were accurate. He'd done it. Until anyone came from him, the majority of the nukes were out of his clutches. He wouldn't have enough to launch an effective strike. Even so, Heydrich couldn't bring himself to smile. It wasn't over. The moment Himmler felt his arsenal was large enough, he would launch it. He had to be denied that chance, but how? Military confrontation had always been inevitable, but it also seemed far away in the future. Now that it was impending, Heydrich found himself worrying about the readiness of his forces. Did he have what was needed matched against Burgundy? Himmler's commanded one of the largest and most well-equipped forces in the world. The Reich couldn't stand up against him. No, it was too late for doubts. Heydrich might have been able to sleep without the threat of nuclear Armageddon, but the security of the future would be uncertain until the Reichsführer was dead and his forces scattered. It was now or never. It would be the hardest battle the Reich would ever fight, but it had to be done. I think I'll save. Oh, shit. Great battle. Okay, we got what? 72, 85 troops. Plus however many Burgundy has compared to... Oh, that's... Okay, with Poland... You know what? I'm ready. How about you? Okay, I think the big move right now is to move into Silesia. And get a encirclement going on all of these guys. Already off the bat, that's a huge fucking move. Fuck. Okay, they're just going in. Give them some time. Let them get out. What is there to research yet? It's better infantry equipment. Now you guys go. No? No? Fuck. Franz Halder stepped in front of German soil for the first time in several years, coming off his transport from north of England from where the perfidious Albion had held him prisoner over the past months. The Englishmen surely had a sense of humor. Instead of delivering a letter, they had sent him back to Germany in order to deliver the message that all of Cornwall's garrison would be released from internment. A small part of Halder wished that he was still languishing in the Yorkshire barracks. All around him he saw smoldering ruins of buildings, squads of SS and Wehrmacht men running around like the headless chickens. Whatever Heydrich's role did to his fatherland, it wasn't any good. General Field Marshal, Heil Heydrich! The shout from across the aircraft's exit ladder emanated like a pair of SS officers, their arms straightened out. While he never liked the SS, Halder was sure happy to hear his new rank being spoken out loud. The English refused to believe it. Heydrich and promoted him over the phone. Sick Al. Heydrich performed a lazy Roman salute before walking down the ladder. The Führer will be pleased to know that the English are making preparation to transfer the bulk of the garrison as soon as the Wehrmacht can retrieve them. Halder cringed internally. He made a slip by calling Heydrich that, but he can comfort himself. That's the word. Why did I not know that word? For it became increasingly clear, titles didn't matter much anymore. Bringing Germany's soldiers home. The English had some decently left, it seems. They've agreed to return our men captured during the Anglo stab in the back. The rebellious swine deserve nothing resembling gratitude or respect, but the situation demands it. Well, we shall graciously accept the return of our honorable soldiers. Halder's men suffered considerable losses in battle with the English, but our forces of and remain to add some real meat to the forces. Hopefully the day shall come when they shall return to England's green and pleasant land. Next time, just stay. We're making some okay pushes thus far. We'll keep these... we'll call Poland in. That'll help us out. We'll keep the... we'll stop from calling in... why am I blanking on his name right now? We'll stop calling Gellin right now, because right now they're putting a bunch of troops there that we can use in turn to distract them. Starving out a bunch of troops over here, bringing Germany's sons home. Oh, god damn it. Oh dear. This is already not going good. Okay, let me load the save. Take two. Okay. I'm ready. How about you? Take two. Force all these guys on this attack. Get that pocket going right there and then. Overran some troops already. Great. We'll send you guys there. We'll go ahead and call in Poland right off the bat. Tiles don't matter much anymore. Bringing Germany's sons home. Military support, moderate support, rogue elements. So far, none of that matters, I think. We'll work on splitting these pockets into even smaller kind of pockets by proxy. Oh, okay. You know, that's probably a good... I forget about espionage. Not to mention how they can actually use it against us. Can I get... I can't request for forces. That's right. They're independent. Spidel looked across the room one last time, then abruptly started. He turned and looked around the gathered men. Hardliners, moderates, everyone from ex-members of Chorner's clique to moderate spirit assembled. Diverse crowd, but one united in common purpose, to put a stop to the madness that had gripped the Reich. Gentlemen, the chatter died down in an instant. He had complete control of the room and their absolute attention. Comrades, I'll keep this brief. The Reich is sick. That's plain enough to see. But thus, then that, our existence as we know it, as grim as it is at risk. Spidel quickly scanned the room. More than a few hands were nodded their assent. Soon enough, the Reich, Zafia, me, we are going to call upon you, men. And as you all know well, the Skald Arms will be life or death. There is no room for error. Because if we lose, the world as we know it will end. For us, it's either victory or death. Now, listen, though. Take him out. We'll have him. Hopefully focus our efforts elsewhere. Alright, well. Take these guys out, and then move on taking these guys out. And then these guys can go ahead and redistribute on their own lines. Keep them moderate assuaged. I don't think that matters too much. Ease our fears. Say IRA of 1, it seems. And despite all the pushes, we're holding the line. Actually kind of well, all things considered. Let's get some goods. How's our production looking? I mean, so far so good. Let's get some planes out. And then get some other planes. Close air support here. See if we can't get some air superiority. So far it looks like 9. Shiza. Let's see if we can't do some pushes in some of these places. I mean, so far we're actually, yeah, we're doing okay so far, actually. Let's see. Burgundy has a lot more casualties than us. Their troops are distracted here. Do we have cores on this? No. So we're really going to have to push into Wallonia. And really, like, Belgium, Flanders, and into the core. East Paris, West Paris. This is basically Avengers, but instead of, you know, the Avengers, it's a bunch of fascists and Slavs. Okay, yeah, this is going a lot better this time. Oh, we're overrunning their troops? Holy shit, yeah. Oh, we're doing encirclements we're not even meaning to? Holy shit. We'll move into Amsterdam. Utrecht, Den Haag. Maybe even do Rotterdam. How are things going in the rest of the world? They're going good in South Africa, I'm noticing. Um... Oh, holy crap. Yeah, we are creaming Himmler. Oh, and now we've integrated the Deutsches Reich. Time to drive some tanks into Moscow, boys. I mean Paris. Heinrich Himmler wasn't so impressive as Heydrich remembered. Not with his lips split, uniform deceived, and glasses missing. Beady eyes glared up from that pudgy face with hate, tempered by the trembling of abject fear. Why not? Why not? What have you done? Came the quivering voice, weak and nasal. This betrayal is the end of our undoing. It stammered and cracked like a nervous pubescent boy. The God of Zion will rule forever. The mongoloid face contorted in the throes of mad ideological ravings, cornered and in denial of its fate. Your wife, your daughters will be whores. Pretty sows. For Heydrich's fist lashed out to interrupt the Reichsfuhrer's venomous words before they could sully years further. He felt his rage boiling over for the first time in years, washing away all inhibitions in a red wave. What for? You brought us to this point, Heydrich. You made the Reich what it is. You halted our mission. We had the word in our grasp. And you stole it away! He struck Himmler again, eliciting a flow of blood from his nostrils. Himmler's eye bulged in deranged fury. It was your fault. If you just have followed orders. But you wouldn't, would you? White Moses. They were right to call you that. Judah. In human skins, that's all you ever were. The art infiltrator. Zion's youngest elder. The Cain of an entire civilization. He jerked and thrashed with his restrained spittle flying from his bloody lips with every hateful word. Heydrich had come for answers, but whatever was left of the Reichsfuhrer's strange mind was too far gone to give them. No, Himmler. You destroyed our vision. You betrayed Hitler and our people. I corrected the order of things. And now it will be as it always should have been. I only did what I had to do! Heydrich unbuckled his holster and drew forth the sleek black Luger, always at his side, and thumbed the safety off. As did I.